Next up is a conversation with Ritu Chakrawarty, AI Solutions Strategist at AbbVie. Ritu likes to reiterate a pretty blunt truth about AI products. No stick, no ROI. That's the truth. So if people aren't using your tool weekly, if it's not sticky, and it's not making their life perceptibly easier, you've already failed. So in this session, we're going to dig into some messy realities, what's working, what's really not working, what tools have failed. Rita will share all of that with us. And yes, those realities are messy, but all of this is messy is in the service of building AI products people will actually use that stick North Star. So joining Rito on stage is going to be Ed Ortega of Machine Partners. Ed is an AI builder and self-proclaimed AI geek as well. So this will be a fun conversation, I'm sure. Ed, Rito, welcome.
Thank you, Maxwell.
Thanks, Maxwell. I wanted to just say that I'm really stoked to have you and be able to talk to you here today, Ritu. We talked earlier, and I learned a lot from you. And I think everyone in this audience should be really excited to have an opportunity to learn from you today, because this is not going to be a high-level conversation. We are going to get into the weeds. We're going to talk about, actual projects that you have built. This is not your first rodeo. And I think in in technical circles, we call people like you a badass because you have done this, you have delivered results, you have actually proven ROI. So before we get started though, just dive in. Tell us a little bit about your role, because you have a really interesting role at AbbVie, and it's kind of a new type of title. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Ed. Whatever you said, and let's see what kind of value I deliver, something that sticks. So my name is Ritu Chakrawarty. And first of all, I'm not a data scientist, nor do I build AI models. So what I do, I actually help people and team to understand what AI and generative AI can do for you, and then help teams to like turn these strategy and bets into some product or stuff that actually stick. Like people use it on day in, day out, like not abandoning after a week one. Because one thing what I have seen, 80% of our enterprise AI pilot don't go to production. And that's a MIT report. It's not like something what I'm making it up. Why? It's not because the tech is failing. It's mainly because it is not sticking to the people. So anything which you are building and if people are not using it, ultimately it may not result into your P&L. So what I did, I have kind of started asking different questions. Whatever we are building, is it gonna show up in P&L? Anybody is gonna use it? And that actually shift everything. So that is what over the time what I'm doing it now, guiding team to bake adoption from day one. So we are not building some shiny tool, but we are building something that people want to use it.
So how do you do this? Like, what's the mechanism? Like, I think there's a lot of companies that I think have identified use cases that sort of seem like they have potential. There's more use cases that probably than we have capacity to build. So how do you identify what the right thing to build is in the first place? Like, what's the first step here?
Absolutely. And you asked the right question because, and we briefly talked about it. So like I use a simple litmus test and it is a three simple word. I call it stop, easy, stick. And let me unpack a little bit. So it is like a gut check or test even before you build anything. First thing is, are we asking what is the one thing user is going to stop it when you bring this product? Because you are removing a friction. And if you're not doing it, that is the first test to fail. Then second thing is, are we making it easy for them to adopt it or making it easy for their to use it? If again that is not yes or maybe, then maybe or no is like a doubt that it is not a good idea. And the third important thing, anybody is going to use it after a pilot or demo is a 15 days, 30 days. So if I don't get these answer very concretely yes, then probably we are not ready. And then we may go back a little deeper, like how do we unpack other things across the board, and that's my litmus test, so that I will stay there.
So just right there, you're kind of the first step, like stop. What are we going to build that's going to replace something that someone is doing. So they're going to stop doing that, and the tool is going to replace that. It's going to remove friction. And so like how at that point, what is the, how do you evaluate it? Is that enough, or do you have to go deeper? And is that at that point, are you starting to try to connect this to the return on investment? How do you have confidence that you're making the right, that you're choosing the right thing to go after?
Absolutely. So when I talk about this simple test, so sounds simple, right? But it cuts deep. So like we look, I mean, my general idea is make it simple because simple is hard. But it actually goes through the entire loop. So it's not only testing the product idea, but we are also testing whether our people are bought in, well, processes are there in flow. And let me like walk you through like what how the stop works. So for example, like we talked about that a little bit on the product side, testing the idea that what are we removing. Most of the time what happens when we talk about stop, it is like, okay, let's build a lot of feature. And good products is not sticking because of the number of feature. They say what I'm killing which needs to be killed, what I'm stopping. So that's the product idea, ensuring that you're building something which is needed. Then you run that on the process side, because you have to stop assuming that people will buy or adopt something which looks smart or shiny. So that is the stop part, which I actually tested. Like, what is the change management required? Because you have to stop pretending that you want require the change management. You need to buy in people. If people don't understand, and sometimes it is like a fear of that not only losing my job, but fear of, am I going to sound dumb because I got something from AI and I didn't test it, it hallucinate. So that fear. How do you remove those objection? And that is the very important stop. And then the last thing about the process is, which is like help you to scale across the enterprise. The one thing which I feel that, which is like really core of my like value or in framework, stop cloning something that is already been proven in the market. So if anything that works off the shelf, have a buy it, because many things we as a builder like to build everything. In AI and Gen AI world, this doesn't work because you will remove a lot of resistance and friction if you are already taking something which is somebody has already invested time and energy and proven into market. Because what happens, what I've seen, you want to build another co-pilot or assistant, and there are good tools which is doing much better job than your tool, right? So people start comparing, say, okay, by the way, I could do with ChatGPT 5, and while you are bringing it, it doesn't do this, why should I?
This is exactly what Taylor was talking about, right? You're building a lesser than version. They're looking at your thing. You're like, oh, this is terrible, and but why don't we have a good one that actually works the way that we want to?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's I will and I have a lot of different example which I could share. So it's interesting conversation.
Yeah, so let's get into let's go back. So in the beginning, as you're identifying use cases, you're looking for places where, hey, this whatever we build here is going to deliver real value. It's very user centric, it sounds like what's going to work for this user. And then you also have to think about the change management for that user. So not only does it have to be valuable for the user, it has to be something that can be implemented in their workflow, that they can adopt, that they feel comfortable with. And then finally, you have to actually build something that is genuinely good, and that you have buy-in from sort of the larger organization to deploy and stuff. So what's a concrete, can you give us a concrete example of something that has gone through this process? Let's do that first, like something that, an example of something you've built that has delivered.
Absolutely. And before I do that, like you mentioned, very good point, which is like a workflow, right? So anything which you are bringing a product, it is removing the friction, but it also has to be in flow. So that is the litmus test. You check it, like whether it could be in their QBRs, it is in their daily stand up, in the tools which they are using, Salesforce, Jira. So this is the example which I wanted to really, a very interesting one, not the good one, which where we were very successful and delivered the ROI at the very first place. We wanted to build a conversational analytics for a retail client for their customer care team. And the whole idea was that you can have the customer voice as well as like what are the support tickets, how they are dealing with different SKUs, and one common place where you can answer, Copilot specifically. And again, we failed the first litmus test because we didn't have a very clear understanding of what are we removing and for whom.
Mm,
So, and which flow it falls into. So, for example, today when the this customer care representative, when they are dealing with the customer, there are three steps they do. They talk, they look into their support ticket tool, and then they find the details, which is the one stop this copilot is helping us to remove it, and how it is filling into their environment. And when we didn't do, when we started rolling it out for the first time, it looks very shiny, everybody started using it, and then they realize it is not answering the basic question, some of the question like, okay, why this SKU and in this store has a negative reviews all the time? Because the data domain, that particular data domain was not well connected with the our analytics tool. Again, going back to the purpose, if we knew it, okay, this user is having 10 questions answered and we want 5 questions to be done by copilot, then absolutely you would have bought that data domain first, not in the pipeline. So what happened, like 3 months down, people have started going back to their old pattern, and
yeah.
leadership started asking, where is the value? I don't see in the P&L. What are we doing? Are we just doing the shiny toy? We realized that's the problem, and then you go back and fix it. We fixed it, get the value. But what happened? The initial excitement, and you lost that inertia, that excitement which you could use to scale it across the enterprise. Now
So
you need to do.
not only have you failed to deliver and deliver value, but you've also lost credibility to a certain extent that you're going to be able
Absolutely
to
lost
build
the
valuable something.
momentum. Lost the momentum and excitement that okay, Copilot will help my make my life easy. Say, okay, I don't know what is in the next release. So now you need to do an extra change management. You need to ensure that. So that is one thing. Like I say that stop helps because it is brutally being brutally honest with yourself, with your team and the client. If you don't do that, like you will pay the price later.
Okay, so but you've got some, now let's talk about managing up here because you've got some, maybe somebody came up with this idea, right? Somebody who has like a nice title, right?
Right.
And they're like, hey, we should do, somebody else has one of these chatbots. We should have a chatbot now, you have to go input. So, in this moment, you're basically saying, don't dive into one of these things just because someone thinks it's a good idea, but do the hard product work of ensuring that this thing's actually going to deliver value, and maybe coming up with some way to measure that, or that's kind of the early work that you're doing here.
Absolutely. And I would say that add a little correction because in today's world, especially in the generative AI, people don't have patience to wait for 6 months to do the product thinking. And but at the same time, it is very, very important because you will fail it. So how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah.
That is where you need to see that, okay, you need early adopter, and that's where the thing comes, do not clone it, stop cloning. That's where you want to start exploiting what is available in the market, which you could use it with the and I'm saying that like in with all the security, you need to ensure that it is not like spoiling your brand, but anything which you can exploit it very quickly and test the idea, whether it is stopping, removing the friction. Meanwhile, you do a deeper dive analysis, do the product thinking, and then bridge the gap. Because if you delay more and go 4 weeks of finding out, doing the design thinking session and come up with the product framework, okay, now it works. People don't like it because something else come in market. So you have to balance it, and that is the difference I saw. Gen pre-era or this era. That's the main difference. People
So
don't have patience.
this is difficult because you've time pressure to deliver. So you don't have all the time in the world to vet these ideas, which basically means there's a chance you're going to fail. And do you sort of communicate that early to stakeholders that, hey, this because everyone's looking for ROI. They want to know, like, I want to be guaranteed that I'm going to get a return on my investment for investing the time and the money of these people into this thing. But essentially what you're kind of saying is like, we're going to do our best, right?
so, and here is the thing: when you are in this kind of role, that I'm doing the best won't work, right? So you have to be honest with yourself also. I mean, there are a lot of myths are there. At the same time, anxiety also. Like, I don't want to be fall behind in the AI race. At the same time, I don't want to commit too much that I fail. So when you are balancing this thing, you need to say upfront that yes, there is a, we can't, may not show the dollar difference, right? But first ROI is your team behavior. So I will give you an example. Recently, what I was working with, primary market researcher, and they had a plethora of information, and they wanted a co-pilot thing, like something that will enable them to find insight from these 1,000 documents. And then, because brand team comes to them saying that, okay, I want to know the insight about this, and they have a limited time. But today it takes like 40 hours, or sometimes like more than that, to find all the details or weeds
Yep.
into multiple document. So what they do, they turn down many of the requests. Now that's the pain area. If you can give quickly in hand of their people, may not be fully baked in, find all the best of the solution, but it can help them to save that 40 hours and make it 5 to 10 minutes. Huge difference. So what will happen? You may not immediately see the dollar difference, but what will happen? People will start asking. Oh, so I had this situation, like, for we wanted to move from QA to prod, and they say, okay, why did you stop? I need access. I need access. That's the ROI. That's the team behavior. And
That's what you
that's
want.
the
You want
signal.
that pull. You want them to
Yeah,
be
that's the
exposed to
signal.
this,
You
see
are
the
building
value,
for
and pull
pull,
more.
not push.
Yeah.
If you are building for push, then you need to do a lot of other things, right? Massaging many people and then make it happen, right? So that's where you will see the initial feeler by doing those experiments and the quicker prototype. There are 1,000 tools available now. You have an idea, you can test it in a week, right?
Yeah.
In a very safe setting, and then
So I just want to stop because
yeah, yeah.
I want to emphasize this. I think this is really, really, really smart and maybe not obvious to people who are not in like in the world of building. But you're saying, look, it's actually not that hard to build a lot of this stuff because we have amazing developer
Totally.
tools and things. And so rather than choosing early and building this big crystal cathedral of amazingness,
Right.
uh, do your really, really fast implementations to the point where you're feeling that pull, where someone is using it and going, oh my God, this actually has a lot of potential, and therefore you're building your confidence that you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing. Is that
Absolutely.
capturing it right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's where my third component or dimension comes, that process. So in the process is what can you scale it? And that's where your initial win, you institutionalize that, because you don't want to lose that momentum, something that is working for other people. Now you codify that playbook and then start copy paste that success all across. But having said that, okay, I will wait for 6 months having all the answers. So stop doing that, like a, I would say, a paralysis analysis too much, because that, like, to the extent AI help us to do some of the, like, finding out pros and cons, so use that tools. At the same time, be sensitive that market is not right now ready to or patient to um, for 6 months or 10 months. You will fall behind.
So you're the head of Gen AI strategy, right? So in that role, we talked earlier today about kind of the psychology of people at companies, the fear of being replaced by AI, the pressure from the top to institute AI for efficiency, which when an employee hears that, and we're not dumb. We hear that and we're like, okay, that sounds like someone wants to fire me and replace me with a robot, right? So from your position, like, how do you ease people's minds? Like, how do you help them understand that these tools are not, out to get them or replace them, but are here to augment them? Like, what are your strategies organizationally to get this across?
Very, very important. And I think most of the damage is done by, like, whatever we read in media, or when anything comes up in all different channel, right? But I would say that what I will definitely share what steps I take. But the important thing is, it is about the organization leadership. What kind of message you are setting? So if you are encouraging people to use AI, generative AI, welcoming that idea, like in the conversation in a meeting, people are happily saying that, okay, yes, I generated 10 ideas and this is the way I have shortlisted. Share your thinking. If you appreciate that working, then people don't fear, people are excited to use it, and that is the most important thing. Set the tone right, that what we are doing here, and that's where I consider myself very lucky in that way, that I'm in the situation where the secondary thing comes more, that okay, I don't fear about my job, but my more worry is like, will I be dumb if I generate some idea and like LLM hallucinate or get me into a problem. So that is the problem you need to handle with like grounding or the trustworthiness and etc. But from setting that taking that fear out is like in every meeting upfront. Like for example, when I go to meeting, most of the time I say that, okay, here are the 5 things I got it from our LLM. And this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and this is the way I want to do the paralysis. Probably the same thing I would have come earlier as well. Uh, mm, and with like maybe 2 days of thinking, and I share that this is the prompt I used. So then when you have this kind of culture, then the fear goes away, because then people understand it is not taking away my job, but it is increasing my human agency. And that's where, because now you can do more products. So I was giving that example of our primary market research. It's not about that it will take away the insight or the intelligence what they have, which is very, very important. But now, rather than answering to 6 calls in a month, they can answer maybe 30.
And so having some transparency in this process,
Very, very
inviting them in.
important.
So if we were having lunch together as two people who kind of who do build stuff, right? I think I would probably ask you about your experience with subject matter expertise, essentially with quality. Because like you said, it's easy to build an AI system. It's pretty easy to build something that works. And by the old paradigm of development, where you would test like the thing either works or it doesn't work. But in the
Right.
Gen AI world, it's not like that. The thing, it's gray, shades of gray on how well does it work, right? And so I'm curious, like, how do you integrate subject matter experts into that assessment of quality? How do you get them in early enough so that you don't go ta-da, and then you have this thing that kind of doesn't meet their quality standards?
Absolutely. And that's where, like, what comes, like, you must have heard a lot about eval, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
that eval is the very important thing. And I'm not getting into, like, okay, just the model efficiency that it returned in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and I mean, all the LLM models are like demonstrating I am the best because I can answer PhD level question.
Yeah.
In our setting, these evals could be completely different. I consider them as like your unit test case, simple,
Yeah.
very simple unit test case. But those are more, we were talking about that what cases, but now you're thinking cases. What could go wrong? So that's where your domain expert has to be part of the team. And I think you got into a very important point here. your you will not be successful if you not have a right team. So you need to have your tech team. It should be a cross functional team, your domain expert, your product guy who can think from all these lenses, what a strategy, who is thinking from that, okay, how it will work, how will I scale it, and operation team. So you bring, and that's where my easiness comes. So that easy in the people side, you need to buy people in. All of them should be your best friend and part of the team. So domain expert becomes your co-creator. So from they are to design your eval, and if you don't get it right, then you will have a tada that
I'm, I'm
situation.
gonna I'm gonna pause and explain evals to non-technical people.
Oh
I think
yeah,
this is really,
absolutely.
really important.
Yeah.
So, like you said, Ritu, I think that was a great point. Like, yes, you've got these new models and they're like PhD level smart, right? But that doesn't mean that they're smart on your particular company or your
Absolutely.
context. So they might be really smart, but they might not be that great at understanding, drug interactions in a very narrow domain sense, or private information that you have and stuff like that. So in order to test whether our systems are working, we build these eval systems, which are basically, I mean, if I'm going to dumb it down really a lot, it's basically pre-built questions and answers where we know the answer and we can ask the AI to make sure that it gives an answer that's reasonably close to the answer that we expect. And so it's actually a pretty complicated space to build these evals and make them performant. But what it does is once you have that test set, you can run changes to your model, changes to your app through these evaluation systems to make sure that by changing some prompt, you haven't broken the whole system or made it dumb again. And so, and I think what you're saying is in order to build those evals properly, you can't just leave it to the engineers. You have to have those subject matter experts in there. And if you do that, are they part of your, is that part of your acculturation and a part of your way to make it easy for them to adopt these tools? Like, is that built into your
Absolutely,
process?
because now they are bought in the process. They know that, like whatever we are feeding in, it's not something like just technology, it is their knowledge. So I say that codifying their brain and the way they think, what good looks like, what the great looks like, what the bad looks like, what ugly looks like. Because in case of generative AI, that's the unknown, right? So even though you give the data, then you need to, the one person can interpret in a multiple way, and that's where you bring different expert so you can remove the biases. At the same time, you can create some kind of gold and platinum data set and the questionnaire to ensure that you are having uh, a list which says that okay, LLM as a judge, but later on, but it's a human judge. And two things. So not only you are getting your system like a I would say accuracy, and then it will not hallucinate and build the trust, but people are also bought in because now they are building it, they're co-creating.
Yeah.
So I'm not forcing it. I'm whatever you are doing, I'm just giving you a tool which can make you a faster, smarter, but it has your brain too.
And you're inviting them into the
Yes,
solution.
and in the mix. But again, you have to be sensitive about it, handling those cases that, okay, once everything is here and LM becomes as good as you would be out. No, you would do something more important, which we were unable to do it because you didn't have bandwidth to do.
Okay, let me ask another question, sort of like maybe not exactly related, but also a very important question, I think, in
Right.
in the practical implementation of these things. So, um, you know, you're in pharma, there's a lot of sensitive data in pharma. If you spin one of these systems up, a lot of people are going to be concerned with, are we protecting privacy? Do we, what controls do you put in the prototype phase, in those early phases to ensure that, you're properly protecting the data, that you're not letting anything leak out, that you're meeting your regulatory requirements and things like that, even in the prototype phase. Do you have an approach for that that others could learn from?
Absolutely, and that's where you get that like a cross-functional team. So your IT, legal, finance, and ops all should be your best friend when you are even testing the idea. It's gone are the days when you say, okay, everything is done in the strategy room, and now you are bringing them in. So my idea is like let's sit on the table and call it like maybe a deal table where you actually start talking about these ideas. Okay, this is what we are building it, or we plan to build it. These are the few ideas, and then have everyone in the room to vouch for it. Here is the risk, and then have a controlled environment. So when you are bringing a domain people, you are not bringing the entire department, you are bringing only the power user, and they have full access and they are okay to share it. Especially in our industry, it is very, very critical. Sometimes it takes time to bring everybody in alignment, but it is very important. You cannot miss that step. I would say that in regulatory industry it is must, but even in non-regulatory like industry, it is critical because you don't want to end up in jail just because LLM. And we have seen that cases earlier, right? Like in Canada, there was an incident, right? For I think
Yeah,
United Airlines or somewhere airlines, I don't remember.
yeah.
But you don't want to spoil your brand or have CEO go to like courtroom, right? So, so that's why it is very critical. Compliance
Um, I know
has to
we're
be
we're going to run out of time in a minute, so I just want to say, we've got a bunch of people here who are maybe embarking, about to embark, have just embarked, are afraid to embark on these first steps of
Mhm.
getting started with building something with AI. I think this is called the AI, ROI conference. And so, can you just give us one last bit around a successful project where you have delivered ROI, where you can show like that process and what happened at the end? I know we only have a couple minutes, but if you can compress it down pretty quickly, and specifically focusing on like that measurement and return of investment on the work.
I would say that like successful project or product which like went up till a production, started with a very small prototype, having something with and again my three golden rules again: stop, ease, and stick. So make sure that like one key criteria where you are removing what the user will stop doing it. In this case of I definitely take this research one, very important one, where we really wanted them to remove the manual stuff. And we didn't build for best of the UX. What we did, we want to make sure that they are able to quickly start consolidating this insight and quickly give it. So the way it worked, ensuring that we identify the correct stop, we got the right people in the room from the beginning, and we ensure that it is part of their flow. So if extra new tab, that means it is a game over. People don't like it. It should be part of their flow, their SharePoint or
Yeah.
their Salesforce. So that's what worked for me. Three things, if you remember, I will say that I think you can get pretty much ROI, and it will start showing in P&L as you are able to scale it.
Well, thank you so much for nerding out with me for the past half hour. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And I would love to stay in touch and talk more about this. Hopefully you can come back for another half hour. We can nerd out in the future. Really appreciate your time, Ritu. And I learned a lot today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed.